Hi, good evening. I thought I would just talk a little bit about the potentially thought-terminating cliche that we shouldn't air our dirty laundry, which can mean to many people not to share personal matters to outsiders or to the public, or not to share about a relationship with people outside the relationship. But it can also be a very dangerous as cliche when applied to situations where you need outside help, and even um, and when abuse is perpetuated by the silence in a community. And we see that a lot in cult-like communities where you are shamed for speaking out, and so systemic abuse doesn't get addressed. I read about that, or I believe that cliche in Spare by Prince Harry, or it was mentioned maybe in the docuseries about Harry and Meghan. And when I read that or heard that applied in their situation when they were discussing risks to their safety and well-being that were caused by either royal practices or by paparazzi or whatever the context, I thought, yeah, that is so shameful that something very serious that's threatening your family and well-being and your most precious relationship is minimized and belittled as being dirty laundry that's somehow being aired when spoken about more publicly. But I've experienced that, and it's very, very hurtful and damaging for one to be accused of doing something that is considered shameful in order to try to find and to achieve safety and a well-being and a preservation of one's family unit. So let's see where to start. I very much agree that in a relationship is very precious, and there should be a lot of privacy and secrecy, and in challenges that are faced in a relationship should be handled as much as possible between the parties in that relationship. And then there hopefully are mentors and counselors or people within the family with wisdom, and potentially even paid therapists that can help a couple or family members or intimate relationships who people in intimate relationships who are suffering and who are at odds or whatever, are facing challenges. But there's a crossing of a line, and that is when things become unsafe or illegal in behaviors. And so I faced that increasingly about 5.5 years ago. And my husband, was at that time on the board of directors for the church and a church elder, trainer in a Bible training, and very, very highly respected in our community. But I was being treated increasingly like I was not wanted. And I was told things that no wife should be told, and treated in a way that no wife should be treated. And I did my best with my husband to resolve these problems. And I was told things like any innuendo of disagreement with him is bad for his health. And when I reached out for help, it was to people I trusted very, very, very much, including my husband's uncle, who has been like a mentor to him and like a father figure, and just a very, very precious person in our lives. And I reached out to him I reached out to my other in-laws, my husband's stepdad and my husband's wife. Sorry, my husband's mother, um, and thought they could help us. And instead, I was told things like, "We just need to do whatever's best for my husband, and just honor whatever he wants and do whatever he tells you to do." And one of the things he told me to do was to leave the house and maybe never live there again. And told him I can't leave. When he told me that, it was on Thanksgiving of 2018. And I said, I can't leave. The kids are here in town, but I could leave on Saturday when they leave. And he said, okay. And so our son turned 20 the next day after Thanksgiving on November 23rd. And on that Saturday, I left. But in the process, I'm like seeking help from his parents and from just the few that I felt like I could reach out to. But it didn't, the abuse didn't stop. In fact, it has intensified over these years. And to this day, it's, 5.5 years or so later, and the abuse, the silencing, the threatening, the estrangement, the stonewalling, financial abuse, etc., have not stopped. And so in the process, I began to reach out for more help, like from church elders, other church elders and co-workers, they're called in our church community, the church community I was in. And it didn't stop the abuse. So eventually my daughter was hospitalized in 2019 in June. And then following that, in 2020, Nathan, our son, was hospitalized, and since then has been hospitalized multiple times for the effects of the cognitive dissonance, the depression, and the anxiety caused by the dismantling of our family unit. And as one might know, once a mother's children are being destabilized by a situation, it's no longer just personal, and it's no longer something you can just indefinitely just let it go without trying to get help to stop the dismantling from occurring. And so I've just been trying. There are the legal resources, but they're very, very expensive. I've gotten legal advice that, from someone that charges $750 an hour. And, I'm a school teacher, and I earn about $750 each week in my teaching job. And so to pay for legal help can be very challenging. I have found less expensive legal help, and I'm thankful for that. But also, I've been told by somebody in the church that if anything is illegal, you go to the authorities. And he said, like, full stop or something like that, some legal term. But if anybody has been abused, especially in an intimate relationship or in a church setting, which that's another, story that I've talked about on my blog, but, it can take decades to process it and to be able to speak about it. And by that time, the legal authorities, they'll look at you like, yeah, there's nothing we can do, or it may not, it's illegal, but it takes a toll on the victim to even explain it. But if the victim can be heard and protected within the church community, if that's where the abuse is occurring, then that's just a huge help to a victim of abuse. So anyway, I'm speaking out in my blog and in this podcast because I want abuse to not be covered up, but rather exposed, because I do believe that secrecy and silence are a form of complicity with abuse. I mean, willfully keeping something secret is a form of complicity of abuse. And if it can open up dialogue among a greater number, that then at least prevents other victims from being targeted, or that prevents false narratives from misleading people and destroying potential relationships, then I don't think it's in vain. I do think Carrie and Megan speaking out about what they've gone through is very important for there to potentially be any healthy changes made in their situation. And in the same, in my situation, I believe any healthy changes will require a critical mass to say no more. This isn't acceptable. But even if it doesn't change for me personally, hopefully my kids won't accept abuse, and others won't because of partly because of my speaking up. And so I just want to encourage people to not be silenced by the thought-terminating cliche, don't air your dirty laundry, but rather speak out, speak up. Don't be afraid to expose problems that have not been able to be resolved in more private settings. Okay, thank you.